Three, two, one. We are live now in the Excel Turbo channel with another great interview with a very special guest. Here is Cristiano Galvao. I'm talking from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And today, as you see here under the screen, I have a very special guest from New Zealand, Chando from Chandoo.org. Let me put him on the screen here at my side. Hello, Chando.
Hey Cristiano, how are you?
Good, good. And you, I see that is very early there in your place.
Yeah, it's not that early. I wake up around same time anyway, but it is in the morning 6 a.m. It's still very dark outside because it is winter time, but I could see that you're all up nice and in the afternoon 2 p.m. isn't it for you?
Yeah, very early. We have some friends here watching, and let me put the comments. We have Brazilian friends like Marcos Reaper, which is a fan of your work,
Uh-huh.
and we have also here a guy, the big guy. Okay, okay. Oh, he put not a problem because I asked it 5 minutes. Claudia Roxo here, Lígia Galvão, and Jayton Santana. Hello, guys. Hello, Jayton. Hello, Lígia, everybody. This is Chando
Uh,
from New Zealand. Let me put on the screen the place because here is Brazil. I am right here in the corner, and New Zealand is in the other place, in the other side, the opposite. Yes. So
wow.
you are here at some place here, right?
Yeah, exactly. I pretty much where that mark is.
Cool, cool, very cool. But you are not from New Zealand, right?
No, I am not originally from New Zealand. I'm all the way from India. So we moved here about 4 years ago now, almost. Yeah, so it's been 4 years since I'm calling New Zealand as my home, but I'm originally from India.
Cool, cool. So you have a great base of fans in India, I suppose. Not only India, the other countries as well, but I know that they are great fans of your work.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate to be able to travel and meet people all over the world, and make good friends. Like now I'm talking to you, but actually, just a funny story. Like I've always wanted to visit South America and spend some time there. So one of the very first things that I got as an opportunity when I was working is that one of my managers called and said, "Hey Chandu, we got a project in I believe it was Argentina. Would you like to go?" So I said, "Yes, sign me up. I want to go there because South America is such a beautiful place. I would love to visit, and there is such a rich culture and heritage and so much to see, right? And a lot of that is still a mystery for somebody like from me, all the way from India. But one thing led to another, and it never really materialized, and that was one of my biggest regrets because imagine if you want to go and visit these places by yourself. It is not only very tricky to manage, but also sometimes it could be financially very, very expensive to travel and be there in other parts of the world. So but if there is a work reason, then it all makes sense. You can just go for work and you can mix a little bit of pleasure, visit the sites and meet people, eat good food. I don't know, maybe when this pandemic ends and when we are all back to
Yeah.
normal, I might travel there and meet people there as well.
Yeah, we should have this conversation in London in April.
Exactly,
Yeah,
right? So now
yeah,
what we are talking here.
yeah. Expected to talk to you and maybe make this video and others from London during this week of the Global Excel Summit, but it wasn't possible. But we will go. We have to do this in the other year when the event takes place, and
Yeah.
then we will have this opportunity to see each one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a video that I was searching here. This is funny because this is related to the your start in Excel. But let me put this question to the other side. First, I would like to hear from you. This is the question that we cannot avoid because this it is strictly related to the things that all the Excel specialists do every day nowadays. So how was for you the beginning of the work on Excel? How did you start?
Uh, it goes back quite a time now. It makes me feel really old when I talk about this. uh, but I started using Excel back in college days just to keep track of things. That was it was never really meant to be for anything advanced. I think I believe one of the earliest uses that I times when I actually used Excel was um, when I finished my undergrad studies, and then I started working as a software developer. So around that time, I was actually using Excel in my work also. But on a personal side, this is something that I've almost told nobody up until now. Is I used Excel to track my progress in the competitive exams. So in India, what happens is when you finish your undergrad studies, you could go for post graduation, and the post graduation is quite competitive. Especially, I wanted to go into management degree, and there are some exams that you have to write to qualify for seat in the college if you want to do post graduation there. And those exams were really tough exams. There is a lot of competition, and there is a lot of preparation to be done. So I used Excel to track my progress in those exams. Like every weekend I would attend some classes to learn how to prepare for those exams. And in those class part of those classes, they would also run some tests to tell you how good you are in each of these areas. So I would actually track all my mistakes and all the things that I was doing in Excel without knowing anything about Excel for that matter. And that was one of those things that personally benefited me in Excel. Of course, in work also I was using Excel to do some reporting and other things. But on a personal side, that is one of those earliest memories of Excel. I believe it was Excel 97 or something that I was using back then. And yeah, so it was about year 2000. 2 and 2003, that's when these things were happening. And then I didn't really use Excel for much of the time until I started working in 2006, and then that's when it became more like a 6 to 7 hours a day I would be just using Excel.
Great, great. And I see in your resume on LinkedIn that you had two courses on computing after the college, one in computer engineering and other in computer science. Tell us about this because you are a great fan of computing. So why two diplomas and two courses?
It's not like yeah, it might appear like this is a choice or anything, but it's just a natural way of learning things. If at least when I was growing up. So um, the in India, normally what happens is you have schooling up to year 10, so that's called 10th
Mhm.
class. And then after 10th class you have a choice of going for a high school that goes from year 11 and 12, so 2 more years of high school. But I didn't go for that. I went into a diploma route, so which is more like a technical education that you can do after year 10. So that was on computer science diploma. uh, but it is a fairly I would say it's not like a course that you can finish and go for any kind of work, because it doesn't give you all the necessary skills. On top, you're also very young when you finish. I think you could finish that when you are 17 or something like that. So you're still not properly cooked. You can't really do anything in
Mhm.
real life. So I finished those 3 years program, and then I realized, oh, this is not enough. I can't really do any valuable work. All the jobs that you would get are uh, fairly low paying. So that means you would have to either work very hard, or you would have to work for a couple of years and then go back to studies. And when you work for some time, then the momentum breaks, right? You don't have the same kind of enthusiasm or energy to go back to more studies, because you're thinking, oh, I'm working, I'm chill, I know more, I don't need to go to college. So I've decided, okay, no, let's just continue the journey. So I went on and then did computer engineering. So it might appear like I have done so much, but it's essentially just enough to get a good job, because one of the bigger challenges, I think it is same with Brazil as well, is there is a lot of people living in India. So there is quite a bit of competition for anything, right? If you want to get a job, or uh, get into a good college, or anything else in life, then you have to compete. So you just have to continue doing these things in order to be able to get out and do what you want.
Yeah, yeah. In Brazil, we have two cities that concentrate the highest salaries. São Paulo at the first place, and Rio de Janeiro at the second. I suppose
Yeah,
in India maybe it's Bangalore and
yeah.
Bombay.
You're absolutely right. So, and it's not easy, right? You can't just go there and start looking, because unless you have the right qualifications and right skill set, it is incredibly difficult. Especially, we're talking in year 2000, 1997. Those times, there is no internet, there is no places like LinkedIn, or other places where recruiters can go and find talent. It all just boils down to, oh, whether you have finished this degree or not, and whether you have done from this college or not. And those were the criteria, right? If you don't have that, then you don't have it. There is no way for anybody to showcase how much they know or how well they are without those tick marks.
Mhm. Yes, yes. Well, this is an amazing story. I have some comments here. For example, Marcelo Mendonça. Hi, Chando. It's great to see you here. I used to live in Australia, and I had the chance to travel to New Zealand once. Such a
Wow.
beautiful place. And I also had the opportunity to travel Bangalore, India, several times for business. So you
Wow,
have
Marcelo.
a potential. You have a potential friend here in the comments.
Hey Marcelo, nice to see that. Yeah, I mean, this is what makes me feel so blessed as well. Like, you think, okay, you go to New Zealand, it's a corner of the world. There would be nobody that you would know, but even in a place like Wellington, I could see that there are people who have followed my work, or I have collaborated through email several times before I moved to New Zealand. So this is amazing, like the amount of connections you can make just because of the beautiful tool like Excel.
Yeah, we have people asking here about the MVP as well. It's in Portuguese, but we can help them in the comments. The friends and colleagues will help in the comments with a small translation. We have Eder Egolveia. Uh, how can I transform in MVP as a basic explanation? But firstly, I would like to ask you how, for you, of course, how it was to receive the MVP. Did you live in New Zealand that time, right?
No, I was actually living in India, and
Mm.
so as part of my work, I was working as a business analyst with a technology company in India around that time. And part of my work is to travel and meet customers in other parts of the world, and build or design technology solutions for them. It all sounds very vague, but um, But essentially I was using Excel and PowerPoint all day to build stuff and create presentations, create stories, and communicate. So I thought, okay, this is a lot of very cool and interesting things I'm building. I should talk about these on my personal website. So I had a website, chandu.org, since 2004, around that time. So I started blogging about these things on my website, uh, and people from all over the world started collaborating, because if I would put an article on how to make a chart or how to write a formula, somebody from Argentina, somebody from US, someone from Sri Lanka would come in and comment and then say, hey, you know what, you could do it like this. So I was actually learning a lot from people visiting my website. So it became like a good community for me, and I was doing that all this while I was also traveling. So I think when the MVP award happened, I was actually living in India but visiting other countries for work, and putting information on my website, and I got the award in 2009. So at that time I was in India. I remember that, but I just finished a major travel or to another country and came back to India or something like that.
Yeah, 2009. I have here on the screen the first award. So you got 11 awards.
Yeah.
It's alive. It's alive. Well done, well done. And we have really fans of your work. For some people, English is not so natural, but they use the translators.
Mm.
We have today some tools that can help with the content, and we have lots of friends learning from you. Even without knowing English, they can give that their way to learn from
Mm.
you. It's amazing. And we have some questions here. We have also a great demonstration to do. And for example, let me put here the comments, and this one here is nice. uh, it's a question that resumes everything. Who is Chando? I was showing the screen. Let me put here on the screen, and this is a detail that I got, but not everyone knows why Chando or Chando.
Yeah.
As I say, it's Chando.
Yeah.
So it's a piece of one name and another name, right?
Yeah. So if you see that, actually my name is Purna Duggirala. It's quite long, obviously. So it
Mhm.
is if I imagine, if I have a website called purnachandraduggirala.com or something, that would be quite a bit to type, and it's easy to misspell. Like people don't, even people in India sometimes do not know how to spell my name. So forget about people living in other parts of the world, and it becomes very hard to even search for, like, what would you type when you are searching for this website. So and this is not even the problem. The Even since I was a kid, uh, the I have not met many people with the same name. Whereas if you have a name like John, chances are you will meet several Johns in your life. But if you have a name like Purnachandra, then you will be fairly unique wherever you go. Nobody will have that kind
Uh,
of a name. So this is what happened with me in school and everywhere. So everywhere, people would always find a way to shorten my name. So people would call me Purna, Puchu, or lots of different variations of my name. But essentially Purnachandra means full moon. That's the literal meaning of that name in our language. And so my mom, she would always call me Chandu, because Chandu also means moon. So it is, if
mm,
you see Purna Chandra, Chandu is the part of the name, and Chandu, it also simply means the same thing as my full name. So that's what my mom and my grandparents, my brother, everyone has called me since I was a kid. So when I went to sign up for a website, I naturally wanted something that is short and easier to type, and easy to maintain. So I went with chandu.org. this is way before anything Excel related happened, because I got the website just to make it like a personal website, and I thought, okay, Chandoo.org is good enough, let's go with that. By then I think Chandoo.com was already another
Taken.
website, so taken, so there, I couldn't get the .com. So I thought, okay, what the
Hmm.
heck? I just go with .org and that's fine. So that's
Uh-huh.
how it really happened. um, and when it became quite popular, it's very hard to switch things over, and I initially wanted to have something fairly generic like Excel Turbo or something like that. But then the challenge is, because people already knew what Chandu.org is, it's tricky to switch over and redirect all the traffic and everything. I thought, okay, let's just keep with this and see how. And
Yeah,
I didn't know where this would go either. Like, I have no idea
yeah.
what was going to happen. But I'm happy with that decision. Chandu.org is there.
It's very, very unique. Very unique. Everybody from the Excel community, the real Excel professionals, they know who is Chandu. And this is the response for another question about the company here. So you transformed your brand in a company, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
your business. Your
So
business.
it is, initially it was not even called Chandu. I mean, this is very old, but um, I used to call my website as Pointy Hair Dilbert. It simply means, some of your viewers may know, there is a cartoon called Dilbert, which is about a technical person who is working under
Uh,
a manager, and the manager is basically, he's a moron, he doesn't know anything. So the Dilbert is working under this pointy haired boss. And when I was doing my computer engineering, I considered myself as Dilbert. And then when I went and did the management degree, I found myself in the position of having that kind of a pointy haired characteristic as well, because I'm also a manager, but I also have technical abilities. So I thought a pointy haired Dilbert is what I am, so I went with that name. But because the website was getting quite popular in the Excel world, I was getting more and more traffic. So if people search for pointy haired things, they would go to my website instead of the dilbert.com. And this was conflicting, right? So one day I got an email from Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, and saying, you need to take off this name, it's confusing. And I thought, okay, let's just switch back, and I went with Chandoo.org from that point onwards.
Yeah, and you have also YouTube that I will show in the end after the demo. But before we go to the practice, uh, I was searching here a special video that I couldn't find anymore. But the 5 Excel tricks. You have a dog, and the dog.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So our
Tell
dog,
them. Yeah, yeah,
she's
I know, I know, but tell them that this is funny.
so I am I love dogs, but I didn't grow up in a family that had dogs. So I was quite skeptical to get a pet, because I have no idea how to care for dogs, nor anybody in my family have. My wife's family, she had a dog as a child, so she kind of knew how to take care of dogs. And she coincidentally, she thought having a pet means, doing so much more work, so she said no dogs. And uh, and then when we have the kids have always been asking, yeah, can we get a pet, can we get a pet? And we were like, no, we have enough to do. You guys are there for each other, you play with each other, you don't need a dog. And we've been kind of postponing this, but last year finally we have all yielded, and I said, okay, we'll get a pet. So we got our dog Excel. in September last year, and I knew immediately that we are going to call something Excel related, right? Initially, I thought I would call her like an index or something like that, but then I thought, okay, Excel. That's an easiest name, and it was also funny because she's really tiny, and and the Excel feels like a large thing. And you look at her, and she's super tiny, and she's extremely sweet.
Yeah, and when you put that five Excel tricks, I clicked and hey, it's a dog. It's very funny, but I couldn't find anymore. But people may search on LinkedIn and maybe they find the video. Well, this is funny, very funny. We have the cool, warm feeling to start a demo. Everybody has the hormones in the veins, so now you can start the Excel part, and then later we showed your YouTube channel to everyone. Feel free to share your screen.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, Cristiano. Thanks for the opportunity. Let me just pull up the screen here. So,
we have let me read the comments where while do you prepare. We have Chari, great to see you live. Learn a lot from you. uh, your new series on Power Query is very helpful. Yeah, and we have here, hello from France, Chando. Nice to get voice and face in front of me. Good. We have Paula Guilford. Hi all. And
hey,
Guillermo
Paula.
Guillermo Chavez, hello from Mexico. Uh,
Yeah.
Michael Olafuzi, awesome session this is. He's talking from Nigeria.
Hey,
Yeah.
Michael. So let me know. Can you see my screen?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see
So
here on the
it's
preview.
yeah, it is just a blank Power BI workbook, but
Mhm.
whatever techniques that I'm talking about, they can be applied to Power Query in Excel as well as Power BI. I'm using Power BI, but it is exactly same, and there is nothing very complicated here. By now, I assume most people have heard and used a little bit of Power Query in various parts of their life. So this particular next 10-15 minutes, I will be talking about six powerful ideas when you are working with list type of data within Power Query. Again, I will give a brief overview of what a list is, and then we will get into those six tips. The first three are fairly easy, so it will kind of warm you up to the idea of what a list really does and what not. And the next three show some interesting possibilities when it comes to working with lists. For the purpose of the first three, we don't need sample data, so we'll just get into Power Query, and then we will use that. Later, we will bring in some sample data to work on the other three tips. So we can go and click on transform data. Because we don't need sample data, we'll just click on transform data. This will take you to the Power Query editor, which will be empty at this point. And I'll right click here, make a new query. We will make this a blank query because there is nothing here, so I can't really make an Excel file or anything, and we will make a blank query. Now, normally when people work within Power Query, they just assume that because this is about 99% of the time things that we see there, is Power Query is for working with tables. You have columns and rows, and it's a table structure that we are working with. But Power Query is actually a very rich language. What it means is it supports not just tables but also other types of data types. Okay, if you compare this with what we have been doing in Excel all this while, Excel doesn't really have that kind of a rich classification. If you open an Excel file, I'll open blank Excel workbook here. um, Excel is predominantly for keeping simple data. So I can have a number, I can have value here, a text value, and that's pretty much it. The Excel cells cannot really have other types of data by default. I mean, there is now availability of data types in Excel, but even then, technically, the cell itself can only hold either a number or text or some very limited type of other information. For example, the cell could be an error, it could be a boolean value like true or false, it could be a date or time, but from an underlying point of view, they're all just numbers or text value. That's all there is. So Excel has very limited feature in terms of what can go into a cell. And whereas within Power Query is much more richer than that. It can have tables, it can have lists, it can have various different data types and whatnot. So list is one of those data types, and a list simply means it's just a bunch of values, and usually lists are vertical. So if you have a list of 5 items, they'll be just 5 rows. You might think a list is a table, but it's not really a table, it's just a single column. And we can create lists by using the curly brackets. So I can specify any values. For example, I can say 1 comma 3 comma 7 comma 9 comma A, B, C, D, and the list can have mixed data types as well, and you will get a list here. So this is what a list really is. It will just have a bunch of values and they will each go into one row. A list doesn't have a column heading or anything, so it's just a single column. It is called list. That's all. You can't really call this list as my list or anything. It's just a list, and
Oh,
we create the list.
bit-
Sorry.
sorry. Before we go on, could you put a zoom to so everybody, even in the cell phone, could see it in details?
Yeah,
Uh,
1 second. I think
Maybe the Windows Zoom, Window Plus, it's
yeah,
okay. The
I
oh
think
the
I
Yeah,
uh,
you can use the Windows Plus, the Windows Plus. It
do you
will.
know what that app is called? I have not used it in a while. Is it
Hmm. Yeah,
Zoom?
that,
That's
no,
the
no, that's
Zoom.
fine.
Yeah.
No, that this is the other. The Windows key and the plus sign will do the job.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
better.
All right. Okay. Yeah, this is
It's
working.
because
Okay.
I
Yeah,
told
I
Zoom.
totally understand. I
Sorry
was
for.
actually trying to get it. I okay. Let's.
It's okay. It's okay. Oh,
Uh,
good. We can see. We can see. It's good. It's good.
All right. Okay, so you can see on the top, you can also see here. It looks a bit weird, but I'll just go ahead. All right. So we have a list that can have multiple values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and then A, B, C, D, and it works. And as I said, Power Query supports much more than this. So this is a little bit about the list. Now, in itself, list may not be very useful. Like you might think, okay, where would I use a list? Because you're not really uh, working with data like this. Even if you get a single column set of values into Power Query, it will always bring that as a table. It's not really bringing that as a list, and we work with a table level stuff. But what makes lists very special is, while we don't think of them as separate things, in a table, essentially a table is a collection of lists, because if a table has 5 columns, it has 5 lists, each column being one list. So when you know how to work with lists, you can use that ideas to get and manipulate individual aspects of the list, or use them to your advantage to transform data in more powerful ways that we may not realize. So this is a list. List is usually defined by using curly brackets, and each list item is separated by a comma. If you have a list and you want to, for example, get third item of the list, you can use, so we have a list currently in the step source, and we want to get the third item of this list. We can use the square bracket notation and put 3. I'll show you what happens. So we were expecting to see 7. Let's see what Power Query will actually show. uh, Oops. Not the list to function. All right, we will make a move. I think I forgot the syntax there. Anyway, so this is a list, and it will give you those items. The key thing to remember is lists have 6 items, but they're indexed from 0. So it will always be the very first item is 0th item, and then it goes on like that. So third item is essentially number 2, not 3, the way we look at it. Now let's talk about the tips. Along way, I'll figure out the exact problem that I did earlier. The first one is, if you want to make a list of numbers, let's say you want to make numbers 1 to 10, you don't have to type them like this. For numbers, there is actually a special syntax that we can follow. So we can say 1 dot dot 10, and that will make a list of numbers for us, right? So this is what uh, the first trick is. So if I want to make up to x number of values, I can just use this. This is a very, very simple approach, and it will always have the separator as 1 at a time. So it will go 1 2 3 4 5. There is actually a longer version of this, which is list.numbers, and we can use this function to generate a more complicated list. For example, I can say I want to go from 3 and I want 20 numbers. uh, this will give you 20 numbers starting from 3, so it will go all the way up to 22, and provide that as a list for us. So that's list dot numbers, and you give the starting number and ending number. You can also, I believe there is another option where you can specify how far apart these numbers should be, like, separate every number by 2 or 3 or whatever, and then that will give. But this is normally we don't create lists like this, but this is more useful, like 1 dot dot 10, we get 10 numbers. uh, this is for numbers. The next one is, if you want to make some text values, again, in itself these tricks will not help, but once you understand them, then you can start to think, oh, how do I mix that concept here? So if I want to just make text values, this only works for alphabets like A to Z. I can have A dot dot C, and it will create all the letters in the alphabet as well. Okay, so this is useful if you are building, let's say you got some items and you want to make a slicer that uses alphabets to drill through and show all the product names that begin with A or B or Z. You can use this technique to first make the list of alphabets, and then you connect it with the first letter of the product name or whatever. So this is another thing. While these two, the numbers and alphabets, are somewhat remote use cases, there is a more practical use case that we have work with all the time, which is making a list of dates in a calendar year, or between a minimum date and a maximum date. And for such things, while you can again try the square bracket notation, it's easier to actually use the list dates function and specify what kind of a date is the start date, and how many number of days you want, and uh, what should be the gap between each item in the list of dates that you want to generate. And this is actually a very powerful technique, and most people use this to make a dynamic calendar table as part of the data model exercises in Power BI or Excel. So let's just see. Let's say I want to make a calendar for the year 2020. So we can type the date. Again, if you have not clearly understood what Power BI is doing, sometimes we might mistakenly type the date as 1 Jan 2020. And while in itself it doesn't really complain, so I want 365 days, and then I want 1 day at a time. So we might just give it like this, but this wouldn't really work, because Power BI is a very rich language, and one of the preconditions for that is it also expects the data types to be clear. So here, while we think 1 Jan 2020 as a date, Power BI doesn't really see that as date, it simply sees that as text value. So in order for it to be clear, we have to make sure that this is treated as a date value. So we need to construct proper date, and we can do this in few different ways. So one of the easiest ways is to use the hash key or pound key, and put the date hash date and then specify the date. So date would be year, month, and day. So 2021 1, that will give you a day that is equal to 1st of Jan 2020. And then we want 365 days. And duration is again a special data type, so it's not 1 or 2, it needs to be a duration. So again, we will say duration, and the duration is mentioned in days, hours, minutes, and seconds. So we have to say 1 day at a time, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds, and that will generate a calendar for all days in 2020, as you could see here. So once you have a calendar like this, you can then use the list transform options to turn this into a table, uh, and then double click here, call this as date, and turn this into date data type. So now Power BI treats this as a date, and from here onwards you can go ahead and introduce any additional columns. For example, I can say, I want the name of the month, I want year number, likewise I want to have quarter and whatnot. So you can calculate all sorts of additional things just using that column to generate a full-blown calendar table from that list function. Because this is all stemming from that little list dot dates function there, I can then go ahead and make it change. For example, if I want for 2 years, I just have to change this 365 to 730, and then that'll give me 2 years worth of calendar. It's not accurate because 2020 is a leap year, so we need to adjust this. Another way is you can also, instead of manually typing these numbers, you can link them to a parameter or a value from another table. So you could link this to another table where you have your transactions or whatever, and then you can say, okay, get the minimum date from the transaction table and use this, and find the maximum date, use the difference as the number of days to generate my calendar table. So this is how the list concept, as you could see, we evolved from the simple idea of 1 to 10, and now suddenly we made a big calendar table. So that is the number 3 idea. So you have your list of numbers, list of alphabets, and list of dates. Now let's see 3 more ideas. Any questions at this point? Maybe you can look at the chat window and tell me.
We have Michael Fuzi talking about the source, but it's from the other example, the source and the keys and the number 2. And I don't know the name of the guy, but there's a guy asking for some examples of complete set of data, but this is a topic for another video on this channel, because this video specifically is about the lists. So
Yeah.
the lists are the base for some very important things on reports. This one, for example, it's from calendar preparation, and we can use this in dashboards, right, Purna?
Yeah. This is actually part of bigger work. Usually when I build a data model, in Power BI or Excel. This is how I make the calendar table to support that, because this gives you more authentic and dynamic way. Like if your data changes, you can just refresh and the calculation will pick up new dates and automatically add them. There are other techniques as well, but this is more uh, like local to your workbook, because you are controlling everything within Power Query here, so it is easier in that sense.
Yes. And the good thing is that everybody can, during the live, repeat the same exercises, even in Power BI. We
Yeah,
can use
there
in
is no
Excel.
data here, so there's that's why I thought this is easier to follow on. But for
Yes.
the next three examples, I have some very simple data. It's not too complicated, so you can go and type that in Excel or Notepad and bring it along and use it. Okay, so we will make a move. I'll ask for questions again in a few minutes. So I'll bring some data here. I got a small Excel workbook that we will use. Let me just quickly navigate there. Uh, so I'll show a preview of this data so that we know exactly what is it that we have. It's a made up data of some courses and which students have signed up for them, and what was the rating they gave to those courses on a 5-point scale. So some people have given the rating, some people, as you could see, they've not given any rating, they've left it as null, blank. And this is just at 19 or 20 rows. There is not much there, just a little bit of information. Okay, I'll load this and we will see a couple of examples here. Okay, um, the in fact the fourth example doesn't even require sample data, so I'll make a blank query so that other people can also just repeat this. So let's just say you have for some reason you want to make a you have a table of some values like this. So I'll just turn this list into a table. So imagine this is just 10 values. It could be number 1 to 10, or it could be anything for that matter. It doesn't really matter. And you have some items like this. It could be anything. And for some purpose you would actually like to duplicate this, not duplicate as in get another copy. It's just that each item you want to repeat in 2 or 3 times. So instead of 1 to 10, I want the output to be 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 4, like each one going into a separate row. So we got some data. We just want to expand this by duplicating but keeping the positions there like that. Okay, for some purpose it may not be apparent exactly why you want to do this, but when you have a situation where that is needed, then you will say, oh, I need that, right? That's what this is going. So to create a duplicate list, one of the easiest ways is you can go add column, custom column, and then you can give any name. It doesn't really matter. Here we will simply say 1 comma 2, because I want to duplicate it twice. If you want to 3 4 times also you can do. If you want 3 times, you just say 1 3. If you want 7 times, you say 1 7. But just 2, so we'll just say 1 comma 2 and add that column. This column, what it does is it will add a column. Each cell within that column has a list. The list is just 2 items, 1 and 2, right? So we did that. Now we just use that little expand button to expand this to new rows. And what this does is it will expand this 1 and 2 1 and 2, and each time it expands it will kind of take the original value and fill it down. So you could see that now our original list has doubled down. At this point you can just delete this column and you end up with a duplicated list. Every item is now twice or thrice. So this is a very unique way of duplicating a list. I say duplicate, but you could triplicate, you could multiply this 5 times, 6 times, or whatever, and use it. In fact, you can go one more step further, and you can where we are adding that custom column, We are saying 1 comma 2, but that end point can be parameterized as well, even the start point. So each row can multiply depending on some other parameter like that. So this is some of those techniques can be applied once you use the list idea. So that's the fourth one. For 5 and 6, we will use this sample data here. So we got some courses, some students, and some rating information. Let's say I want to, instead of seeing the names like this, I want to just each course, Excel for beginners, I want to see all the names comma separated next to it. So Excel for beginners, John, comma James, comma Laurie, comma Susan, comma, and then advanced Excel, Seong, comma Kumar, like that. So that's what we want to see. To create that, for that purpose, we don't need the rating information. So I will first duplicate this query, and here we will do that. So this is tip number 5. For this, we don't need the rating. So I'll remove this column. We got this. We select the course. We go to transform group by. Now this is not a direct list technique, but list will play a role along way. And we will say I want to group by the course. And instead of seeing how many people are there, I want to actually see all the data. So we'll give the column name as data and then say all rows, right? So you want to group by course, and new column name is data. It will contain all the rows corresponding to it. So what this does is it will give you 4 rows because there is only 4 courses, and the corresponding data for all the people inside: John, James, Laurie, Susan. Likewise here, Seong, Kumar, Joe, and James, like that. All right. So once this is there, then remember early on when I was introducing lists, I said that a table is nothing but a collection of lists. So each column within the table is one list. So we could think of this as table, or we could think of this as 2 lists: course list and student list together. So I can actually extract the course list alone and place that here. So to do that, we will add a column. We'll say students list. This is equal to my data table, the data column. So it will come up in the square brackets data. And this data table has that list of students. So we will simply say students. That's the column name for that thing. And that will, I think I misspelled student. Right. So this will give me a list. That list is just those names: John, James, Laurie, and Susan. Right. Like this. So at this point, we can remove this original thing and expand this. Instead of expanding to new rows, extract the values and separate them with comma, and we will get the names like this. It will be, however many, that much automatically it will adjust. You can give comma, you can give hyphen, you can give comma space, and it will work to show that. So this is the trick number 5, where we are using group by to extract all the matching values, and then the list operations to either combine them or extract the list alone and use that for some other purpose. I got another example on my blog where I use a similar technique but for more advanced purposes. So feel free to research that. But once you are familiar with the concepts, then you can start seeing how they can help you in various data transformation work that you are doing within Power BI. So that is tip number 5. Tip number 6 is we will use the lists to fill up these missing values. Okay. There is a technique in statistics where you have missing values and how to treat missing values. So the easiest thing to do is, let's say I'm using this to analyze how satisfied people are with courses. So one of the easiest things we could do is we can delete all the missing values and just done with that, right? But let's say we want to keep the information there, and anything missing, I want to fill that up with some other value. Okay, so that process is called imputation, where what we will do is anything missing we will impute by putting some other value there. That other value could be a fixed value, like all the missing ratings will be defaulted to 3, or it could be more dynamic. You could say, okay, all the missing values should be replaced by the median rating or average rating or the most frequent rating information. And these techniques are always used in data science processes to fill up gaps, especially when you run survey. Most of the time you end up with missing items here and there, and if you delete, then you will end up with half data. So we could keep the original data as it is and impute through some of these techniques. So I'll show you how to impute by filling the null values with the average of the remaining ratings. Okay, so for that we will need to first calculate the average rating. So we will add a new step, and here in that step we will get the average rating alone. Okay, so to get the average rating, we will simply say list dot average. That function will give you average rating. There's something wrong with this autofill because it repeats that. You want to give the list name. The list name is that rating column, but if you simply say rating, it won't work because it needs to be rating column of the previous step. The previous step is change it type. So that is what we want to give. Change it type rating column. So this will give you the average rating, which is 4, right? And that will be in custom one. You can double click, sorry, you can rename this step. So we will be calling this as average rating. So now we have, as part of the Power Queries process, an intermediate step called average rating, which is 4. Okay. At this point, we will add another step, and we will simply revert to the original data. We now have all the original data, but if you observe carefully, there is an intermediate step that will tell me what was the average rating. At this point, I can right click, replace values. Value to find is null, and replace with, we'll first replace this with a dummy value like 99. So everything becomes 99, right? Now, while looking at the replaced value step, you could see that null is being replaced with 99. So where it says 99, I can give average rating. Oops, average rating. We couldn't put hash double quotes average rating in the dialog box because that box expects only numbers. So we'll just put that number or value there. But once you have done that, you can just replace that step with this. And if you click this, now all of those missing values will become 4. Okay, and we have now replaced all the missing values with the average rating. We could use this exact technique for list.median, list.mode to get the median value or mode value or even minimum and maximum and whatnot. And again, here we are using the power of lists to get to that individual position and do it. So that concludes the tip number 6. I think when we finish, I will save this workbook and send it to Cristiano so he can put it in the YouTube description as a download link in case anybody want it. But because these are fairly simple data things, you could easily replicate them without even getting a sample file. So that is all I have for you.
Wow, very cool. Thank you very much. Thank you firstly for accepting the invitation, especially for a live because it's natural. It was funny, and I'm sorry again for telling Zoom because I say Zoom instead of magnify. It's the kind of thing that happens when
No,
we
don't
are
be.
using. No, no,
I
it's
should
my fault.
it's not. It
No,
is
no,
not.
my
I should
fault.
have actually known where. Um, in fact, the other day I was on Twitter and I read a shortcut. I can't remember this. Um like to zoom the whole Power Query screen itself without
Mhm.
doing anything else. Maybe somebody in the comment section remembers that shortcut. I believe it is Control Plus or yeah. See, this is the one. Control
Let
Shift
me show it.
Plus, and that would zoom this screen. I was actually looking for this because this would be so much easier than the uh, than the on-screen zoom thingy, because it is easier to
Mhm.
handle, and it doesn't really create two screens and create that kind of an effect. So in case
Yeah,
anybody else is looking, it is the control shift plus key on my keyboard. It might depend on where the plus button is on your keyboard, and control shift minus uh, for expanding. So I better remember this for my next demo.
cool, very cool. This is cool. Not everybody knows, and people are telling here the feedback. Great tip, Claudia Rocho and Celia Alves as well. Great tips. Dharmesh Rajput, brilliant tips, and he's telling here that he will multiply this knowledge through the learners. Well done, well done. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So you are giving good seeds here to everybody spread this knowledge. Thank you very much. And I have here also a missing comment from the beginning. That guy, the name is Anand. So he's from Bangalore, and he is also saying thank you for this session. Amazing, amazing, and also we have here uh, Gogazani saying great tips, and Lija
Thanks,
Galvão.
thanks everyone. I'm really glad it worked out well, and you. I hope you're now more comfortable working with lists in Power Query. They might appear a bit mysterious, especially because we don't normally see a list. We tend to work with tables, but if you know what a list is and how to manipulate them, that can actually create some extremely powerful transformations and data manipulations within Power Query.
Yes, yes. I was writing here quickly on the comments that once we understand the power of the lists, we can advance on more complex ETL.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
And since from the beginning, I was inside here silently in my head comparing the lists with Python, because when we learn Python, we usually start by studying the lists.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Um, I think in R and Python there is actually a greater focus on lists before you move on to data frame or table layout. But
yes,
because Excel and Power BI come from table mindset, they it is quite natural for us to approach table rather than a list. We don't normally deal with list at all in Excel, and in Power BI maybe rarely. So we are not thinking from the dimension of list, like how is this a list, but once you understand that, that makes uh, some of those things very easy.
yes. Especially when people start to handle JSON files.
Yeah, exactly. Or even many other places where there could be a list of lists or some value and some list associated with that and all of that, and this is quite common in business data. I mean, we don't realize, but it is quite often you find these things.
Yes, cool, cool. Let me put your website on the screen. We are reaching almost the end of the video, and let me put the blog and also the YouTube channel, because the YouTube I told that I would be putting in the end. This is the Chando. Well done. You have lots of followers and you have great videos. The latest one is great as well with Bill Allen. This here, how to make variance chart in Power BI. This is awesome, and of course, all the Excel content is it's amazing. The 10 chart codes, it's a must see for everyone who. Oh, we have some ads. I had to close because it started to play in my headphones. Sorry, but
It's all right.
everybody
Yeah.
everybody must visit the Chando. It's the same name of the website, so
Yeah.
it's really easy to see that and find the videos. Make sure you're subscribed to Chando, because you will have the notifications in your cell phone when he release some new video. Uh, Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to have you here in the channel. Uh, I have been consuming your content as well for a long time, and I'm really happy to have you here. And this is the end of the video, and I would like to give the all the screen, and then you will be able to say the final words. I will close my camera, and then the video is yours. And tell them some announcement or some advice. What you feel free. It's your time here, so I'm gonna give you the screen, and it's your time. Okay. Your time again, but your time to close the video. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. I really
thank you.
appreciate. Let me put your solo on the screen, and then we end the video. Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, I want to just say thanks, Cristiano, for inviting me to do this and talk to some of your channel members and your community. I hope you all enjoyed working with lists in Power BI, in Power Query. And yeah, I don't really have like a announcement or anything to make, but I just want to encourage you to keep learning and keep sharing what you are learning with others, so that you are not only learning, but you're also empowering other people to be awesome in their life. So yeah, just keep doing and enjoy, and yeah, that's all. I don't really have much to say, but thank you so much. I was so glad to meet you all remotely, from different parts of the world. And yeah, in case you have any questions or anything, feel free to post a comment in the YouTube page, so me or Cristiano can reply back and help you out.
Thank you. It's a
Thanks.
pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks. Bye.